Now, sis, I was rooting for you. I would venture to say that we were all rooting for you. Soon as we were like, yeah, Dexter might have got him one, you decided you had other plans and you rerouted. So here we are. So there was a lot that took place in this episode called Murder Horny. So let's get into it. So we start where we left off at the precinct where Dexter was telling Harrison, don't do it. And Harrison was shook. He was like, you're dead. And Dexter was like, no, I'm very real. Now get in the car. So when they get back to Dexter's place, he's like, I came here to watch over you. And Harrison said, I gave you a good trigger to the chest. How are you alive? And Dexter explained all of that, the weather and how he ended up in a coma for 10 weeks and all of that. And Harrison was like, man, you like Mike Myers or that guy with the hockey mask that won't go away. I kind of laughed at this because I said this in one of my original Sin reviews because I was like, dog, Dexter won't go away. So then Harrison asked, why aren't you in jail? And then Dexter said, all things considered, I've been forgiven. Chef Bishop cleared me of all charges. And Harrison is still an emotional wreck. He said, you have no idea what that day in the woods did to me. It's been stuck in his head. And Dexter said, you know what? I made you do that. And I shouldn't have. I like that Dexter is being more accountable. Still has a long way to go, but this is a good start. But Dexter got right down to it. He said, I know about Ryan, which is how I found you. He said, you did it just how I taught you. Almost like a proud father. And I guess to make Harrison feel normal and feel better, he decided to talk about his own past. He was like, you know, I had these urges when I was your age. Even talked about the frat boy that he had to jump for Deb because he was trying to harm her and she stopped him. But then he said, I got my first kill when I was 20 and there was this release. And then Harrison stopped and was like, I'm going to let you finish this walk down memory lane, but I hate this. I can't stop seeing Ryan and his watch keeps ticking in my head. And in pure Harry fashion, Dexter tried to rationalize it by saying, you know, think about how many women Ryan would have hurt had you not intervened. And Harrison said, intervening would have been calling hotel security, not playing toilet top thrasher and bashing Ryan's head in. You tried to nurture something within me. Had you not been you, I wouldn't have killed Ryan. So a lot of times with parents, they're operating with tools that they were given when they were growing up. So here he's trying to do exactly what Harry taught him, but what Harry did was wrong. He set a lot of this in motion. And Dexter is trying to provide more comfort and justification for what Harrison did. He's like, you're more than you are in your worst moment. And I got to give it up to Harrison because he had a lot in him and he was giving Dexter the business. It was rapid fire. He was like, is that what you told yourself when mom was murdered? Or Aunt Deb? Or LaGuerta? And that's when Dexter was like, hold up, how do you know about LaGuerta? And that's when Harrison said, Batista found me too. And we had quite the chat this morning. You could see that Dexter was a little uncomfortable after hearing that. He wanted me to say that you were the Bay Harbor butcher, even implied that you trained me. And Dexter was like, what did you say? Obviously, I paid him in dust. To which Dexter replied, don't worry, he doesn't have anything. I talked to him a week ago in Iron Lake, and Harrison picked up on it. He said, so he let me believe that you were dead. I honestly don't even really know what to believe anymore. And Dexter said, Batista's just trying to manipulate you. And Dexter would know something about this because manipulation is also his specialty. And Harrison said, maybe. But that doesn't mean everything he said was a lie. And then he got a little bit distracted because that clock started ticking in his head. It was almost like that pressure started building up in him again. And then Dexter noticed it and said, hey, let me hold on to it. I can carry it for you. And the moment Dexter closed his hands over that watch, the sound just dissipated. And after that, you could see that Harrison had this burden lifted off of him. It was sort of like he had a sigh of relief. And then Dexter did the most parent thing whenever you piss your child off. He was like, you want something to eat? And Harrison was like, no, you don't get to just come back from the dead like that and act like it's all good. What makes you think I want you in my life? And then he stormed out. And I feel bad for Harrison because he's dealing with a lot right now internally. He's fighting against guilt, anger, loss, feeling alone. He definitely needs somebody, and preferably Dexter, because he can't tell anybody this secret. He wants him some Elsa so bad, but that is not the person to tell. And now Dexter's feeling those parental pains again. They have the power to build and destroy their children, and unfortunately, the neglectful behavior of adults put Dexter on this trajectory. So he's learning how to navigate this space while on the job. That's what most parents have to do anyway. Speaking of learning, we're learning a lot more about Leon Prater. Found out he grew up in a foster home, paid off the mortgage of that foster home when he got his first meal. And on top of that, he says he pays off the mortgage of everybody that adopts a child from that home. Come on, Bruce Wayne, the murderer. And the interviewer was trying to get him to share that information in the interview. And he was like, oh no, let's keep that a secret. I think he wanted to keep that a secret for reasons other than being humble. One good reason is to make sure that people don't take advantage of the system so they don't adopt a child that they don't really care about. The other reason is if he happens to be a serial killer for real, his origin story might stem from these parts and he doesn't want people looking around too much. So then we get back over to Harrison, who's busting a stroll and thinking per usual. And he gets a call from Detective Wallace, who's returning his call from earlier. She was like, hey, I got a phone call from this number, but you didn't leave a voicemail. And let me tell you, Buddy was frazzled. He sounded guilty as hell because what is I changed my mind? He did the same thing with the watch repair people. He went from I'm busy to I'll come to you. What happened to busy, Harrison? When I tell you Harrison stay on struggle, he definitely needs Dexter. But Dexter's over here driving his year car, serving Eeyore realness. Like, Harrison doesn't want me. I don't have any friends. Well, Lil Uzi Dex, all your friends are dead though. I mean, some of that was on you though. And then he said, you know what? I know a lady that's like me. So he hits up Mia and says, hey, you want to go to Swan Lake tonight? Because I know you like the ballet and stuff. And she was like, I'm not trying to go to Swan Lake because I'm not ready to take a nap right now. What else you got? So they ended up hitting that alley and going bowling. And I was like, oh, they look cute and flirty. They really like each other. I'm building a reality TV show around them as we speak. On their steamy date, Dexter and Mia pick up a spare and a strike. But who will they strike next? Find out next week on Love to Kill For. The show would be crazy. Ratings out the roof. But anyway, I'm having a good time watching them go back and forth and smiling at each other, just being normal. And I was thinking to myself, Dexter, don't set her up. They had a deep conversation about family and friends and how she doesn't have any either. Touched on Dexter's family for a second. She was like, you know, you from New York. You're from New York. I'm surprised you don't have any family up here. To which Dexter smoothly replied, it's complicated. And she was like, I get it. She confirmed that she didn't really care for Lowell. She said he's a prick. And Dexter in his mind was like, was a prick. And I was like, man, I wish Dexter could have said this out loud. But the rule is don't turn on the group. And we don't know what kind of person she is while holding other people's secrets. And it's a good thing he didn't say anything because later on in the episode, we found out some terrible news, which we'll get to in a little bit. These two had such a great connection, even though Dexter was lying to her. So then we get back over to the precinct with Harrison and Detective Wallace. And I don't know what he was thinking because he spent all that time walking over to the precinct. And the only lie that you could think to muster is that you were looking for Shauna's number? Harrison, that's the best you got, bruh? You're definitely in need of your dad. Because first of all, he already told you not to go over there. Secondly, if you had to go, he would have given you a better storyline. He would have just known how to navigate that space with a detective, especially like Detective Wallace, because they kind of have similar minds. Either way, sir, you should have thought of a better lie. Talking about I feel guilty for not helping. I let her down. I let myself down. Fam, you took that toilet top and put Ryan down. You did a great job, actually. And Detective Wallace said, guilty is an interesting word to use here. And she pulls out an article from Iron Lake and says, maybe you're a hero. Maybe you have a hero complex. Maybe we should discuss your time in Iron Lake. And Harrison was like, can I please just have her number? And she said, boy, you know we are not in the business of giving out victims' phone numbers, especially to suspects. He was like, so I'm still a suspect? And I'm thinking, Harrison, you got to read the room, baby. Your girl pulled out a newspaper clipping. She's already building a case against you. And then he was like, can I go? And she says, yeah, you can go. You're not under arrest yet. I like me some Detective Wallace. She is thorough and to the point. So then we get over to the Leon Prater interview. And he talks about why he's having this gala supporting the police department, how his parents were killed in a drunk driving accident, how he was an orphan, and he was like, you'd be shocked who comes through my doors. And what I'm picking up on is how polished he is in his responses. This man can give you anything you want in an interview. He can definitely hide in plain sight, which kind of shines a light on danger. And then you hear the interviewer list off a number of things that represent Leon Prater. He's a philanthropist, self-made billionaire, orphan. And she simply said, I must ask, who is Leon Prater? That's the billion-dollar question inquiring minds would like to know. And I'm sure we're going to find out pretty soon. So Mia and Dexter are about to go their separate ways when she asked, hey, you want to hit up this wine bar later? And Dexter said, I'd love to. And then she asked, have you ever considered a menage? And I was taken aback just as much as Dexter. At first, I was like, girl, this is quick. And Dexter said, shouldn't it just be us the first time? And Mia said, oh, I'm talking about doing a kill collab. Just mull it over. So back at Dexter's apartment, he's icing his shoulder from bowling. He's probably in need of more acupuncture. Then Harry was like, hey, you're considering her offer, aren't you? And he said, when has that ever worked out for you? Remember Miguel Prado or Lumen? Dexter said, those weren't really killers. But Mia is like me. She has a code. Maybe I even tell her who I really am. And Harry said, oh, that's cute that you think you can tell her that information. You know what she can also do? Tell Prater that you, Dexter Wilt Chamberlain Morgan, have 150 bodies on him. That's a crazy number, by the way. And while he's talking to Harry, he hears Prudence fall outside. So he runs outside, helps her up, and into the house. Now, of course, once Blessing sees this, he's freaking out because apparently she's been sick and she no longer wants to go to radiation treatment because it makes her nauseous. And she's been having these like falling spells ever since she stopped going. And Blessing wants her to go to the hospital, get checked on, make sure she doesn't have a concussion or anything like that. And she said, if you really want to help me, put up these groceries and go on in there and make me some tea. Now, of course, Blessing is going to do what his mama told him to do. But on the way to do it, he said, hey, talk some sense into her. As a Black American, I generally don't say it like this, but when an African person or sometimes a Caribbean person says, it brings me so much joy. Prudence just waved Blessing off like, now stop playing with me. And Dexter said, if you were my mother, I'd feel the same way. You're lucky to have each other. And Prudence was like, that's true. But you got to leave it to an 84-year-old woman to preach a word to Dexter. She said, Blessing's got to make peace with it. I've lived and seen the world. I don't want to die in a tiny room. She said, I'd much rather pass in the place where I raised my family. And Dexter said, you don't want to die alone. And she said, exactly. Blessing was over there listening in the other room. Yes, he is frustrated, but you know it's all out of love. He's just real passionate. Somebody give that brother a hug. That conversation did something for Dexter and Blessing. Now, while we're on the topic of health, we pop over to the hospital where we see Charlie in the room with her mom, who has glioblastoma, grade 4. And then she's talking to her mom about a student. She said, remember that student I was talking about? And she said, you mean Tanisha? She said, yeah. She finally read a book in front of the whole class. She's such a shy little 3rd grader. And I was like, hold up. I know y'all are not about to tell me that this woman is a whole school teacher. I mean, she has to be lying to her mom because her mom can't get up and verify anyway. But maybe this is also why she's working for Prater, because she needs the money. I know that hospital bill is not cheap. So we get back over to Dexter's house. He's opening a package and you find out he ordered a new blood slide box. I said, oh, you about to run amok in New York, huh? He added that janky Lowell blood slide to the box. So now all he had to do was find a hiding place for it. And even though it was a bad idea, he decided to hide it in Joy's old stash spot. Somebody's gonna find this, whether it's somebody in Blessing's family or somebody that breaks into the house. So remember, he has to be red for Prater and crew, because you have to have something for show and tell. I doubt that Prater and them will want to see like you perform on a CPR dummy. And if Dexter is still performing Bay Harbor Butcher behavior, they might try to find you just like they found Red, which means they'll likely find your new trophies. And they will definitely know why people came up missing. So Dexter calls Harrison to check in, and Harrison says he's not ready to talk. Got too much going on, like Ryan's investigation. And Dexter says, what can I do to help? And Harrison says, nothing. Now, you know you can't tell a parent that they can't help you. They're going to do something regardless of what you say, whether it's right or wrong. So it's nighttime and we're over at the wine bar with Mia and Dexter. They're having a great time. And then all of a sudden the conversation goes left. They somehow get on the conversation of her having a code, and she says she really doesn't have one. But the media wants to make it seem like she's doing it for some noble cause because she's a woman. But deep down, she just likes to kill whenever she gets an itch. She said, to be honest, the press actually labeled a lot of those men as predators, when really, I'm the predator. And I'm like, oh. And Dexter's look said it all. That look said, I have a table prepared for you. And then she asked Dexter, hey, did you consider what I said about the menage earlier? And he said, I did. And then she said, hey, let's do it tonight. And he was like, tonight? She was like, yeah, I want to do it in your style. Let's be spontaneous. Boy, y'all love moving up deadlines on Dexter. Lowell did it last episode, and now here you are trying to expedite. Dexter said, I have a kill kit in the car. So while she took care of the bill, Dexter went out to the trunk. And Harry said, I told your ass not to play in her sandbox. And Dexter picks up Ryan's watch. And Harry says, it's always been about Harrison. So then Dexter grabs his things to bring her down, because I don't think he's going to use it on a your car driver. He's going to protect Blessing and his colleagues. So then Dexter gets back over here with Mia. They're walking near the rideshare folks. Now Mia was very inquisitive about how he does it. And Dexter was pretty apprehensive, but she was like, I'll be your way in. She was going to use her gender as a way to disarm them, because they won't be looking for a woman as a predator. And this makes me think of her and Prater, because neither of them will be considered threats. Mia because of her gender, and Prater because he's of smaller stature. People love saying don't judge a book by its cover. Meanwhile, that's what always happens. But they're overlooking the fact that anybody can be a victim or a villain. So then we get back out here to this busy street where all these your car drivers are, and she tried to just select one and jump into the car, but Dex shut that down. And it's interesting because the guy didn't ask her for verification, because he felt at ease with her. Had it just been Dexter alone, nah, he would have had to verify. Now Mia asked what was wrong, and Dexter said, well, you don't have a hoodie like mine, so it's likely that you can end up on a camera and get caught. And she was like, well, you didn't even tell me all of this. And she thought he was having a bit of performance anxiety, which he was. But she got upset and said, well, you have a right to change your mind. And she expressed disappointment in how the night was ending as she walked off. Now Dexter was relieved, and he almost went after her when she was walking away, but then he caught himself. It would look real suspicious if 2 people came up missing when I just got to Prater's crew. I'm glad he's thinking. Now, I hope he has his thinking cap on for how he's going to present himself as Red, because all he really knows how to be is the Bay Harbor Butcher. And if we're being honest, he needs to take this hoodie off while he's walking down the street, because right now, he's alone and on that street with all those rideshare drivers. All it takes is one phone call, and it'll have him hemmed up by the cops for questioning. Now, it sucks that Dexter can't find love how he wants it, but at least we know that Harrison is going to become less of a suspect in Ryan's case, because Mia's loose lips made it easy for him to toss her to the side. This is light work for him. And let me tell you, Mia moved on fast, because she was all murder horny. Homegirl went to a bar and found a poor unfortunate soul. He was sitting there by his lonesome, and he looked like a mark as soon as she opened that door. He thought Luck was going to be a lady tonight, but it turned out the Luck was actually Dexter. Dexter set her up, made sure to tip off the boys in blue. Dexter's New York accent was hilarious, by the way. Dexter said, "Get over here! Right now. Lady Vengeance is about to strike again." And they got there just in time to save Lil Buddy. They found the trophies of Ryan's watch. The cleaning supplies was a nice touch. And they showed all of these items to Detective Wallace and Oliva. It was a cute setup, but I don't think Detective Wallace is actually behind it like the others. She wants to talk to Mia ASAP. And here's where it's going to get tricky, because I bet she has an alibi for the time frame that Ryan was killed. And she's staying in the Airbnb, so she has no real reason to be at the Empire Hotel. Unless she was hunting down Ryan, but there has to be footage, which they would likely not have. She might just flat out say, "I don't recognize this watch. I didn't do that one." But as for the other crimes, life! Or she can get death and walk the Green Mile. So Harrison isn't really off the hook just yet, because they still have footage of him coming in and out of the hotel, and he doesn't have a great alibi. Now back at the Prater estate, he's watching his interview while eating when Charlie walks in and says, "Sir, we gotta talk." She said, "I know where Mia is, I just can't get to her, and the feds can move her at any moment." And Prater really didn't look at her. He said, "I hired you to make things go away. Did I make a mistake?" She said, "No, sir, you did not." Him unpausing that interview and continuing his meal without looking at her was kind of terrifying. And she just walked away. And as she was walking away, her face said something, and I wasn't quite sure what it was saying. If I had to guess, I would say that she was afraid of him. And as she was walking away, that quote from the interview popped up at the perfect time. "Leon Prater, who are you?" Buddy must be a demon. So then we get over to the hotel with Angel, and he's studying over some information. Then he sees the press conference saying that Lady Vengeance is the one that took out Ryan Foster. Angel was like, "What the f?" Then you see his investigation wall that's all about Dexter. Sometimes the police are so quick to solve a crime that they just overlook simple details. Detective Wallace and Batista are going to be very hard to convince that Lady Vengeance killed Ryan Foster. Now back over at the Empire, Elsa is over the moon. She was like, "Harrison, come in here. They found Ryan's murderer." Now he was gagged, and he was like, "How did they find her?" And she said, "They found her trophy, son." And then Harrison knew exactly where to go. So he came to see Papa. And he asked, "Was it you?" Dexter said, "I hope I didn't overstep your boundaries." And that's when Harrison asked to come in. They sat and talked a bit more this time. And Harrison said, "Having a serial killer arrested doesn't sound like you." And Dexter was like, "Tell me about it." And then Dexter said, "I was reminded of how important it is to have people in my life that truly know me. And that's you, Harrison." And Harrison asked, "Do I though? Like, really?" And that's when Dexter started talking more about the details of what happened to Rita and how he didn't expect to have a family, especially being what he is. He even talked about how his selfishness is what got Rita killed. And he said it broke him. And Harrison said, "The truth, finally." Then Harrison asked, "What will stop innocent people from dying because of you?" And Dex said, "I'm hoping the difference will be having you in my life." And Harrison said, "But I'm not like you." And Dexter said, "I know that, and I don't want you to be. You have a goodness and a humanity that I will never have. I won't try to mold you in my image ever again." And then he said, "I'm sorry. I have so many reasons to kill, but you're my reason to live. I still want a family, and you're all I have." And then Harrison said, "You're all I have too." Dexter had a couple of big sides of his own in that conversation. You gotta appreciate the male vulnerability. And then Harry appeared and said, "You did good." For some reason, I expected him to disappear like a ghost or something, but that didn't happen. This was actually my favorite scene from the episode. It was very emotional. The writers need to meet me outside. I'm not gonna jump you. I'm just gonna talk. Y'all were trying to make me cry, and I don't like it. So over at the jailhouse, you have Charlie show up to have a chat with Mia, who thought she was going to be meeting with an attorney. Well, it turns out that Charlie actually is an attorney. Graduated from Harvard Law, allegedly. Now, they keep asking who Prater is, but we need to be asking who Charlie is, because she has on so many hats. I feel like she goes outside every day and just hits a Mario block and then gets a new weapon in her arsenal. She came to Mia to make sure that she wasn't going to cause any issues for Prater. And Mia said, hey, I know the game. I'm not going to ask for any help, money, or even talk. And Charlie said that would please our friend greatly. And she said he's going to make sure that your time spent here is comfortable and as short as possible, whatever that means. And that's the end of the episode. Every episode, the season just keeps getting better. I feel like a parrot because I keep saying this episode was my favorite episode. Well, this one actually is. All that family stuff was just really touching. I hope people didn't get too triggered because it might hit close to home. But it was great. No notes. What did y'all think of the episode? Where do y'all think things are heading? Please drop a comment down below. Hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you know when I drop new content. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.